Once again, Nicole, thank you so much for the opportunity to interview you. I know we talk at least once a week on a consistent basis, but I'm just glad to have been able to have this conversation, especially when it comes to financial literacy. I think a lot of people forget that wealth is a process and it's a journey within itself. And
Yes.
so, can you let the people know who you are and a little bit more about Amount Financial?
Yes, I sure can. So, first off, thank you, Sierra, for just your commitment to our communities, to mental health, to just seeing Black and Brown people thrive during these times. I think people are starting to forget that it was a complete mental breakdown just a few months ago for most of the world. And people like you who continue to be warriors and bring these conversations that used to be taboo to the front line, it's just it's invaluable. And so I just want to take a moment and give you your flowers
Thank you.
for that, because I know that it is not easy at all. So, hello everyone. I'm Dr. Nicole Garner Scott. I am the founder and lead money coach for Mount Financial. And our focus with Amount Financial is really helping women of color really change their money story, being able to get into spaces and into places where they can create breathing room in their households, where you can create legacies that are worth leaving, where you can put in everything that's needed to start to create generational wealth so that you can take care of the grandbabies and the, and the nieces and nephews that you haven't even met yet. So, very very intentional with that. We do that through the services we offer, as well as just a lot of the programs in our online or our digital coaching and membership platform, which is called Commonwealth.
Love it, love it. And so make sure you guys are tuning in and tapping into everything Dr. Nicole Garner Scott as well as Amount Financial. So we're just going to dive right into it. We already know, like you mentioned, this past year with COVID, we have dealt with a lot of financial insecurity. Whatever instability we were experiencing in the other areas of our life, whether it's occupational, emotional, mental, physical, whatever, that can increase stress, can increase anxiety. It can really weigh down on who we are as a people, and maybe even create these mental roadblocks to developing a plan or cultivating that desire to build generational wealth. And so, how do you help your clients and the individuals who tap into your network navigate through those fears that are in relation to money?
So through a few different ways. First off, we get to the root of it. Right, there is a lot of triggers that people have from childhood, from their own relationship to money, from experiences that have landed deep into their DNA, into their persona in regards to money. So we really start with identifying that. What are the triggers? What is your current relationship with money? What are stories and memories that you hold in regards to finances that are guiding your decisions in your adult life? And so a term that I use is, many of us have suffered from financial PTSD, right? And so we think of PTSD when it comes to other horrific areas that people have gone through, but depending upon your livelihood and just how you grew up, the experiences with money could have been very horrific too, and could
Mhm.
have jolted. It's just some different ways that you experience energetically with money. So financial PTSD is a very real thing. Financial triggers, financial trauma, all of those things are things, and they were exasperated for many of us during the pandemic, with those who were dealing with just fear of not what's going on. Some households were dealing with job loss, transition, just a lot of different things that increased that level of it. And so I like to tell people, you might be suffering through this if you find that you're in a space where you're very hostile when it comes to talking about money, or just hostile overall. Like, your child comes to you like, "Mom, can I borrow $1?" And you lose it. $1. gonna get out my face? You know, like all those different things. Like if you're going through that hostile moment, just puts you into that space very quickly. You're probably, you know, going through some type of financial trauma. If you are socially avoiding people because you don't want to deal with finances, right? So if you're in a space, hi Delicia, yay. So if you're, you know, dealing in a space where you avoid picking up the phone because it'll probably be, you know, someone asking for money that you owe them. If you can't see yourself going out with friends because you're just in a space where you don't know how you're going to cover that bill or what's going to happen, or you have other things that you have to worry about, and you know, you're just in a space of doing all those different things, then you know you could possibly be suffering from financial trauma. If you see yourself very depressed, if you are just losing the excitement in life, if you are in a space where you can't tap into your financial gut, right? I always say that, you know, you're in a good space because creativity is usually the source of a lot of our money flow. But when you are shut down internally, when you are in a mindset of things are not going to get better, this is just my life, I don't know where I stand with this, you know, just you can't see the light at the end of the tunnel, then you cut off hearing access to your financial gut. And so if you look around right now, you know, there are millionaires and billionaires that are made in economic recessions, right? So
Mm.
I mean, if I was to look outside my window right now, there's probably 10 Amazon Prime trucks flying through the neighborhood. You know, there's, you know, FedEx is dropping off left and right, all these different things. There's money moving all around you. And so when you're vibrating higher, when you're at a good space mentally and in your health and your spiritually, when you're just aligned in that, then your financial gut can speak to you. You can say, oh, I'm good at this. Let me tap into this. Oh, this is an opportunity over here. Oh, there's a property, you know, down the street from my mom's house that's foreclosed. Maybe we can hop on that. You just start seeing the
Right.
opportunities around you. But when you're vibrating lower, and you just have everything shut off, then it just looks like there's no way out. So when you start to see some of those characteristics, when you start to feel yourself going through that, then that's when you have to address it. And that's the first thing is just admitting it to yourself. You know, like just admitting, hey, I'm going through this, and then starting to figure out what are your realms and what are your ways of getting out.
I love it. Yes, thank you for walking us through that. And for anybody who doesn't know exactly what trauma is a distress response to anything that we feel as though is life-threatening, or maybe even being a circumstance where we feel like we're being held back. And it's super important for us to look at that because perspective is key.
Mhm.
It's so key. Usually people falter during times of distress, or other people utilize that as motivation. It really just depends on your level of resiliency. So
Mhm.
being a, I like when you kept saying there's money all around us, the same thing with all of our ideas. We're always flowing consistently with ideas. And so having that bravery, that courage to be able to step out on those ideas. And I think deep down inside, we really have to challenge our own perspectives in relation to money, being able to have those difficult conversations with our families, as well as even ourselves,
Mhm.
tapping into like increased insightfulness. So thank you for that.
Yeah. Yeah.
There you go back. Yeah. Dalicia, hey girl. She says, I love that you all are bringing light to many ways with which PTSD can manifest itself. My
Mhm.
mom is definitely like that. Yes, definitely. I think that's so important. So let's dive into wealth building across the lifespan. I think oftentimes we thought as though we had to wait until we were inching towards retirement to dive into the wealth aspects, or the firm foundation of the 401k, or maybe even diving into like the IRA. And so what are some more proactive ways that we can take in order to build wealth, whether we're single, married, divorced, whatever the case may be?
So I love this, and I love that you're bringing this to everyone's attention because a lot of times, many people think that you have to be wealthy to properly plan to build wealth. But the thing is, how do you get to being wealthy if you don't plan, right? Like everything is just a reflection of your actions and your decisions. And so there's no certain age to start. There's no magic time in your life when everything really is perfect and now you can start, planning. You just have to be intentional, and then your life will start to match up to those decisions that you're making. So so we'll start with when you're young, right? As a child. And so what I say is this is when your parents have a chance to step in. So if there's any parents tuned in, and if you're not a parent, you still have children in your life. You're rich auntie, you are player uncle, you are
Not the player uncle.
after Isley Brothers verses, I keep calling hey, but you're a big cousin, you're a mentor, you're something in a child's life, right? And imagine if you would have got some financial nuggets when you were a child, right? When you were able to see things. So for little kids, I say it's a great time to really help them to understand the power of letting your money sit. And that is a very hard lesson, especially because many other people in the household are not following that lesson, right? Money is immediately coming in and coming out. The biggest blessing that you have is the power of time when you're younger, right? You have the chance to see your money grow and prosper just by leaving it alone. So for very young kids, I do it, and I do this with my son too. If you put your money into the piggy bank, and if you don't touch it, and if you don't ask for anything, then I keep adding to it, right? And so they start to get the concept of, okay, if I can put my money away and let it sit, it has the potential to grow. So that's a small lesson for when you're very young. Then we'll move up into teenage years, right? And so the thing of the nature is, a lot of people feel like they can't pass down generational wealth to their family because they don't necessarily have the finances. But what you can pass down in knowledge is very, very, very purposeful too. So if you can start to give your teenager or the teenagers in your life financial literacy knowledge. The thing is, when we turn 18, the world says go make these large financial decisions without having any prep, right? That's when people sign up for credit cards. That's when people, spent up the stimmy. That's, it's so many things that people did, and now, you can see people in their 40s, 50s, 60s still paying on student loans, like really spent their entire lives paying on student loans. And so whatever you can do to prepare your child, you can, to be honest, I see 12, 13-year-olds who are capable of making very, very sound financial decisions. And that's just because of the level of technology that's afforded to future generations, and I think it's very important to bring children into the conversation about money too. So my generation and years back, it would be like, get out of grown folks' business, but now it's everybody's business. Because it's not fair that as a child, I didn't get to participate in the conversation, but as an adult, I got to come and clean it up, right? So,
Yes.
just bringing children into that conversation, putting them on apps. There's a great Black-owned, women-owned app called Goal Setter that is just really amazing for helping children understand financial literacy, understand not to be scared of debt. Like every wealthy person in this country has debt. How do you manage that debt? Not to be scared of credit cards and of credit. It's the responsibility attached to that. So, just making sure that they have those understandings, and also too, learning very young that money is energy, you know
Mm-hmm.
it's a tool. It's a tool for you to be able to do things. It's a tool for you to be able to communicate value in the world and receive value back. But that's all it is, though. You know, not making money this mystical thing that will save your life, and you know, all the, just giving it too much emotional power. So definitely, when at a younger age, making sure that that's very important.
I think even then, when you're talking about all the different types of stigmas, right, especially within the mental health space, we've grown up with the stigma of like, all right, don't ask for help because we're not open to this being in vulnerability, or don't seek therapy because, you know, you're going to be stigmatized as crazy. But even as you're talking about financial wellness, there are stigmas within that space as well.
Yeah.
Like you mentioned, like we're battling the stigma of ageism. Like, okay, well, you are only going to be able to perceive or conceptualize wealth when you get a certain decade, whether it's in your 50s and older, or maybe even challenging those cultural competency stigmas. Even then, we're just like children are meant to be seen and not heard, so there's no point in bringing you into the conversation.
Yeah.
And so I think just breaking all of that down and creating room for growth, creating room to be able to have these candid conversations, because like if we're seeking generational wealth, it's all hands on deck.
Yes. Yes. That is, oh, that's beautiful, Sierra. Like that's just very, very important. Um, so it starts then, right? Because you can definitely see, you know, probably through clients that you deal with in the mental health space, and then me from clients I deal with in the money coaching space, you see how many of the issues that people are processing through begin in childhood. And so if we can help, you know, start that in childhood moments, teenage moments, then that's excellent. Also, the ability to give your high school student an 800 credit score when they graduate, that's a
Yeah.
beautiful thing too. You know, those are ways to continue to be able to build. And I say this only to people who are very responsible, because many of us have had, you know, parents that have opened up credit cards and then gave us a 100 credit score before we graduate. So if this is not your lane, if you feel like you can't be trusted in that space, then let's not. You know, everything is not for everyone. But if you
Mhm.
have the ability to enter your child into the adult world already with a high credit level, and when they start to make a lot of their first purchases, they're already, you know, operating from a space of progression and not regression, and I feel like that's excellent too. In your 20s, compound interest is your biggest friend. You know, what you're able to save during those times, what you're able to put away as far as investments, investing early, understanding what you want to do in that space is very, very key. So, you know, if you have that opportunity, and the thing is, you can create those opportunities too. You know, this generation and generations to follow are so progressive. You can start some type of e-commerce, Shopify, something, whatever that is, and just say this money's going straight to, you know, my future goals. Also in your 20s, understanding how to, I don't like to use the word budget because it sounds so restrictive to people,
Yeah.
but just being able to financially plan, right? And one thing I like to do with, especially my young clients in their 20s, is creating a zero-based bottom line. Meaning, when you bring money in, you're giving every single dollar that comes into your life a job, right? And so that means if your paycheck is $3,000, right, this week, instead of saying, okay, well, it costs 1,200 to pay off all my bills and I have the rest of this money to go do what I want to do, what intentionally do you want to do with the rest of that money? You know, do you already know that you want to take trips? Then putting money towards trips. Do you know that you want a certain amount to go to investments because you would like to get a house, you know, by the time you're 30 or 35, putting money towards that. Putting money towards emergencies because life happens, right?
Mhm.
You don't have to wait till you get to 30, 40, and 50 to realize that life happens. You saw it all the way growing up. Life happens. A transmission, uh, you know, something random out the blue, different things, you know, can possibly happen. And if you have your emergency fund in place, if you have that money set aside, then it's just like, okay, life happens. I see you, life. I pay for you, life, and we keep it moving, right?
Yes.
Rather than seeing life, being so surprised by life, and then allowing life to take you under, you
Mm-hmm.
know. And that alleviates so much stress in your life when you have that emergency fund, when you have those things in place, that you can continue moving through life no matter what. So those are some great things for your 20s and your, and you know, I hate to say it by decade, because these things can happen in any decade. This is not the same life, you know, where you have to have, you know, you might be married by 20, you might have kids by 25. Like, I just don't subscribe to that life, you know, or
Yes.
mindset. It's, you know, different years, people going to do different things, and, you know, whatever is smart for you and makes sense to you, and, you know, whatever God has planned for you too. Like, we tend to forget that part. Um, but yes, just in your earlier years, time is your friend. Compound interest is your friend. Early investments are your friend. As you continue down that space, then you want to make sure that you have things set up. So if you're in corporate America, how can you match your IRAs? If you're not in corporate America, you can still, you know, do many of the same financial planning in that type of way, making sure that you have a very diverse portfolio, especially as you can see, you know, in this type of economy, um, parts of your portfolio may have been thriving before this economy shift, and now it's on the other side. And so that's why I always consistently preach, have a very diverse portfolio, because a piece of that portfolio will do well no matter how the economy is. It's just the circle just keeps shifting, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Sure that you have some of those things in place. If you do have children, you know, you have a opportunity to either get a 529 for their future college endeavors, or you can get a custodial IRA. Me and my husband got a custodial IRA because I don't really know where college is going to be by the time my child, you know, he's 2 now. And so we'll, you know, he's half entrepreneur. I'm the entrepreneur. My husband is, you know, corporate America. So he's 50.
Mm-hmm.
So we chose to do a custodial IRA because then we can give him the money to start a business. We can give him the money to do a few other things without having to get the ramifications of getting taxed on that money. A 529 is excellent and comes with a lot of benefits. But if that child decides not to go to college, then you have to deal with the taxation on that money. So, you know, understanding those things. Getting into home ownership is a beautiful thing. But once again, that's not for everyone either, too. So I always say, I like to look at the city that you're in. Like to look at your future goals. Do you see yourself moving around? What makes the most sense to you? How is the market at that time? Right. So if you hit at the top of this pandemic, you got great property. Right now, it's ridiculous.
It
It's
is ridiculous.
very
Yeah.
ridiculous to hop into the market. You're probably going to get way less for your money, and that might mean waiting some time until it makes sense again. Also, if you are in a city such as New York, there's no way um, to live ownership wise the way you want to, unless you are hitting at a certain level financially, right? A lot of people in very pricey markets are spending all of their future earnings on, you know, just being able to pay that amount, where you can be in a market such as Charlotte, North Carolina, and it's like, let's go. You know, like it is a few of my mentors in the financial space, they live in very, I want to say, random places, you know,
Yeah.
parts of Tennessee or parts of the Carolinas, or, you know, in the Midwest, glorious mansions that you would never be able to get for that price anywhere else. And then they just fly into the cities to do business as such, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So really understanding what home ownership means to you. What are your future goals? Where do you want to go through that? Also, it's a beautiful time for alternative housing too. I have a lot of clients who are doing like container homes and um, just, you know, utilizing parts of their
Tiny houses and stuff like that.
yeah,
Yeah.
home ownership space for Airbnbs. And you know, it's just it's a different type of society. And so if you go
Mhm.
with wanting to make it an asset and not a liability, then that's excellent too.
Mhm.
um Moving a little further, making sure that you have your will in place. I think that the pandemic showed everyone that nothing is for certain, nothing is for sure. Trying to remember the Outcast line.
You
Uh,
can plan a pretty picnic, but you can't predict the weather.
yes, but you can't predict the weather, right? And you know, unfortunately, there was a lot of people during the pandemic that felt like they had more time, and there were no wheels in place, and all this hard work. You know, you spend your life building for your family, you spend your life going to work, telling yourself that I'm doing this for the people that I love, and then there's no paperwork in place to guide that if anything was to happen to you. And so I say, if you are 18 and up, you know, and watching this, that you need a will. You know, a lot of people feel like that's something for grandma and grandpa to do, or that's something to do later on in life. Um, but once again, you know, you just want to make sure you have everything written out. Hi, Maya. Yes, Maya was saying we have 50 states. Yes, and I love that. So listen, you guys need to follow Maya because she will give you the good word on making your money count too. Um,
Hmm.
but yes, yeah. So having your will in place, and I think what's really important too about having a will in place right now is it makes you start to move more intentionally, right? So every so often there's different milestones in your life where you need to redo your will. So like if you move, if you have children, if you move to another state, if you acquire you know, more assets, if you get divorced, if you you know, decide that you want to do something different for your parents, you know, it's just different realms. And so me and my husband, we relocated to South Florida, to Miami, and so we updated our will. But just being able to look at it and make sure I'm on track with certain things. Like there are certain things I've committed to in this life that I want to be able to pass on to my son. There's certain things I've committed to this life that I want to be able to leave legacy wise for community. And so looking back at that will reminds me, what is my bigger why? What is my purpose? What am I trying to do? So get lost in that. So doing a will is just a good exercise overall to make you live with intentionality.
Definitely. And I'm glad that you touched on intentionality because you said it before I even said it. But like even with all the different options, whether it's home ownership or credit or anything else, being intentional, but also creating space for grace as well. Because understandably, like your step one may look different from somebody's
Yeah.
step 20. And so, like you had alluded to earlier, just making sure that, yes, have this information, but make sure that you are being intentional about creating a plan that is specific for you, and also being willing to tap into other resources to be able to help you execute that plan. And even with the grace component as well, making sure that you're assessing your needs. I think oftentimes we forget about taking it back to the basics of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Tending to your basic needs, whether it's like, okay, do I have food, shelter, clothing? Do I
Mm-hmm.
have a place to sleep? And then raising it up like physiologically, do I have the air that I need to maintain just to be able to live and execute these plans, so to speak? And then also tapping into those esteem needs. Do I have enough respect for myself? Do I have a sense of freedom? How can I utilize money as a tool for freedom rather than constantly working for a dollar, living from paycheck to paycheck and all that jazz? And then also too, like love and connection and whatnot. Just finding our ways to self-actualize. I know we had that song, I'm Living My Best Life by Lil Duval or whatever, but what does living your best life actually look
You,
like
right.
specifically?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So
That's
yes, giving yourself that grace. Somebody, yes, Maya, yes, creating that space for grace, because
hmm
we all have these plans that we want to execute financially, but just making sure that you're doing them in a manner that's not a detriment to you, because you're trying to play catch up with somebody else.
yes, and I wanna hop on that too, especially with the financial moves that you make too. So a lot of times people are making financial moves based upon trying to keep up with what they see happening or transpiring in social media, but you haven't assessed like what is your risk level. Are you conservative? Are you not conservative? What is your knowledge and understanding before going into some of those investments? What are you prepared to win? What are you prepared to lose? What is the ultimate goal that you're trying to get to? And so you can have two people, they see, let's get into real estate investment, they both go for it, but this person is, by all means, they have a high risk tolerance, they're ready to do whatever it takes. And if they go through some downturns in the market, they're mentally and financially ready to deal with that. You have someone else where they use their stimmy, that was all that they had, they better get their money back, and they need
Hmm.
and these different things.
Yeah.
So it is mentally driving them up the wall. It is, taking them through this, and they're losing it, and it just was not a good investment for them. And so you need to understand those different things too. Understand who you are as far as where you land on the risk scale. Um, uh,
Hmm.
Educating yourself before you jump in, uh, validating and vetting the financial professionals that you're getting advice from, because between Clubhouse and Instagram Live and everything else, everyone is, giving out a lot of advice. And
Yes.
some of the advice is really good, but it's good depending upon other factors in your life, right?
Hmm.
The same with losing weight, like if you have preconceived conditions, then somebody telling you to go run every day is not the best thing for you. But if
Hmm.
you're, you know, up to standard, medical standards in regards to your health, then running every day might work for you. So the thing is, you got to really sit down with yourself. Like you got to get clear with yourself. You got to understand yourself. You got to understand where you're going with this. You have to educate yourself. I mean, I say the same thing too with going to church. Like if the preacher says something, can I find it in the Bible? I don't remember reading it. Like,
Right.
like I don't remember that being said. And so it's up to you to take responsibility for your own decisions in your own life, and where you're going with that.
I'm smiling from ear to ear because, this week I've been doing the positive self-talk challenge. And like, even as we're talking about self, all of the messaging that we're receiving, it's still our responsibility to filter through all of that and see what applies to us. And also bringing clarity to what influences the way that we think and the way that we see certain things. I also want to encourage any and everybody to realize that wealth is available to you.
Yeah.
Wealth is available to you. I want to repeat that wealth is available to you, but you really have to assess all of the different mental barriers that keep you from achieving wealth or keep you from pursuing wealth.
hmm
I think that's very important within itself. And like you mentioned, just doing your due diligence, not only doing like the hard work, but also doing like the heart work in relation to you receiving
Hmm.
that wealth as well.
Right.
Because it's one thing to get it, but are you mentally and emotionally in a place to be able to manage that level of
You'll
wealth
lose
as
it.
well?
Yeah. If you don't do the hard internal work, um, and in my yoga spaces, we definitely refer to it as like shadow work. In therapy, you probably refer to it as dealing with your inner child. In spirituality, I mean, we give it so many different terms, but if you don't heal that little girl inside of you, if you don't heal that little boy inside of you, you're going to come into lots of money and you're going to lose lots of money, because the intention wasn't there. You haven't sat down and figured out your why. You haven't healed in the areas that you need to heal with. You haven't figured out what is the long game, what is the long-term plan for financially. Like, it's just so many different things that you want to spend this time and make sure that it is as aligned as it could possibly be. We all have continued work to do. That's just a part of life. We'll continue working on ourselves for to the end of time. But
Yeah.
being aware, being very aware of where you are, being very aware of what triggers you, what trauma is there, what delights you, what truly makes you happy. All of those things are very, very key. And then one thing I love to say too, as a part of your wealth building strategy, sleep is a very, very big part of wealth building.
Yeah.
I think that during the pandemic, a lot of people saw that. People who got rest that haven't been able to really get rest in years, or people who saw, just slowing down, they made better decisions. All of those things were just very, very important. And so when you're well rested, when you can calm your nervous system down, when you can step inside yourself, that's when you can make a lot of the better decisions, But when you're burnt out, when you're on the edge, when you're frustrated, when you're angry, when your nervous system is wired and you're in fight or flight, you feel like everybody's trying to scam you. You feel like
Yeah.
money. You feel like people coming for you. You don't, you making toxic decision after toxic decision, and you could tell, you can look at like some of our grandparents, they feel like everything is a scam because they're living in that space of toxic,
Yeah.
right? I tried to get my grandmother set up on Cash App and she was like, I don't fool with that. My money flying through the internet. And I was like, like, what do you mean? Like cash is way more dangerous just sitting around the house. But
Exactly.
working through some of that toxic um ways of doing things and just historic ways too. And then just being in a space where you have to recognize that some of this is generational, right? Some of some of the things that we deal with, especially when it comes to like the racial wealth gap, we have to, as Black people, we have to stop taking all the blame for it too. Like,
Mm-hmm.
where are we in the space where we recognize that there were systems designed to make sure that we did not touch or see wealth, and
Mm-hmm.
understand that too, then you can start to rise above that as well. Like if you recognize what redlining is, if you recognize what the pay gap is, if you recognize these different things, then you're not sitting around blaming yourself for this. You're saying, okay, I just got to beat the system at this,
Yeah.
instead of feeling like, oh, I make horrible decisions and oh, I'm so embarrassed and oh, no, those were things that were put in place that were designed to make sure that you didn't win. And it's going to be so glorious to see you win. It's
Yeah.
going to be such a beautiful space to see it happen.
And I appreciate that approach because, like, even when we think about blame, like, we blame four different ways. So we have a tendency to blame out, like blaming other people. We blame in by blaming ourselves. We'll blame up, like, we always feel as though somebody above us or in a position of authority is at fault. Or if we are the people in position of authority, we'll blame down, blame the people below us. And so understanding that, like we talked about, life happens on life's terms, but we also have to remain solution focused. I think a lot of people forget that acceptance doesn't mean that you're giving the okay for this, for the system to be what it is. We can all agree that systemically being oppressed by this system doesn't work for us. But what can we do next? What choices can we make to
Mhm.
impact our communities moving forward? How can we continue to utilize our strengths and continue to leverage our resiliency for generations to come?
Mm. That's good. That's good.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, Nicole, I greatly appreciate your time once again. Can you please let the people know where they can find you?
Yes, yes. Could you pin it in the comments? But
Yes.
amountfinancial.com. That is just the hub where you can find everything as far as our financial coaching, as far as our digital community and membership. And then we have a new program that we're launching at the end of this month, which is called the Family Matters System, which just really helps you put everything in place in regards to your legacy planning, structure for the financial flow in your family and in your household. So you can go to amountfinancial.com/family matters with an S, and you can get more information in regards to that. And then, just me personally on Instagram is Dr. Garner Scott, and my personal website is Nicole Garner Scott. So everything crosses over. I'm a serial entrepreneur at heart. So if you land on one site, you're going to find out about all the other businesses too, and would love for you guys to join our mobile community too. So I'll definitely put that in my stories, just on how to join our mobile community so we can stay connected.
Yes. So once again, y'all, thank y'all so much for tuning in to another wonderful live with an amazing guest. As always, like I mentioned, everything will be cross-pollinated. So even though it'll still be here readily available on Instagram, you'll also see this on my YouTube channel at Legacy Speaks. And then you can also check out the original and official Legacy Speaks podcast as well. So please make sure that you're staying connected. As always, check in with legacysbks.com for your local blogs and mental health resources. And thank y'all so much for tuning in. Bye.